The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The Chicago Bears win over the Washington Commanders was ugly.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast.
Big picture for me, the takeaway I get from this game is like they won 25-24, a 1-point victory on a last-second game-winning play, back-to-back games. Before the bye week, it was against the Raiders. After the bye week, it was the Commanders. And in some ways, you feel like, well, the team is in the same place, right? They won in almost identical ways in a lot. One was, I guess, a blocked field goal. One is a made field goal. But like generally similar feelings after the game of like, ooh, Bears were a little bit lucky to pull out that game with a victory, given some of the different areas that they didn't play perfectly or some of the mistakes they made. And yet, I think the fact that they put together the same relative performance against two very different caliber teams shows the improvement within it. That the Commanders are a much better team than the Las Vegas Raiders. And so for the Bears to play that well against the Commanders, even with the mistakes there, like to play is still so much better than what they were able to do against the Raiders. Like I think if you pick up the exact performance that they did against the Raiders and play that quality of football against the Commanders, you're losing this game by maybe double digits. And vice versa, if you pick up what the Bears did against the Commanders in this game and put it against a worse Raiders team, they probably win that game by double digits, and it's not nearly as close. But the fact that like they were just as close with a really good Commanders team as they were with a not very good Raiders team is real progress there, even when it isn't actual progress on the scoreboard, but it's literally the same score that comes down to a special teams play at the very end. Because this is a team that found a way to beat a playoff team from last year and a team that was top 10 in offense and defense this season. This was a Bears team that found a way to, I don't want to say shut down the Commanders' running game, but slow down the number one rushing attack in the NFL with what was the number 32 run defense in the NFL. That is real progress. And we'll go into some of the more specific improvements either way, but like it shows you this team is trending in the right direction, that if they can go blow for blow with a Commanders team that's going to be in the postseason, they're going to make some amount of postseason run. Maybe they're not a Super Bowl team yet, or what, they're certainly not a perfect team, but to be right there with them and, not only just like play, it's one thing if you play your best game and you play out of your mind and you find a way to beat a better team because you just were on top of everything. And it's just like, wow, everything is going our way. The receivers are catching all the passes. The defense is dropping passes and fumbling and turnovers and whatever thing, like everything's going wrong for them and everything's going right for you and you find a way to win. Hey, that's great. But I think it's in some ways more impressive when you can be so imperfect against a good team and still be able to win. Like obviously you would prefer to just play really well. But the fact that you can still beat a team when you're not playing as well as you could tells you how much better this Bears team can still be. And even before they get to be that much better, they're still good enough to beat the Washington Commanders. Like that's really where this team is. Because I think in this game, Caleb Williams was not great. He was okay. He was not great in this game. I think the Bears defense, not great. Got the turnovers, but not great in this game. And yet none of those were enough to derail this Bears team. And I think some of that has to do with the team getting better in other areas that then helped them overcome the areas where they weren't as good against the Commanders. Whereas like, had they still been bad in some of the same areas they'd always been bad, and then you add in some of the mistakes we saw in this game, then you can't overcome it. But the improvement that they showed on some of the things that they have coming out of the bye week was enough to lift them above their own problems. And that's just not something that we experienced under a Matt Eberflus-led Chicago Bears team. It also feels like something that, hey, it's not sustainable to keep winning this way. Like you do have to still get better from here, but this feels like a team that's like, this is like the jumping off point game, right? It's not a team that is like in over its head and is flailing around trying not to drown and finds a way to win a game that they didn't really belong in. It's like, no, this team is like still figuring out how to be the best version of itself, and like this isn't even its final form. And if it's winning like this with a lot of improvement still in front of it and expectations that different aspects of this team are going to continue to get better and not just be permanently stuck how they are right now, like that's where you can get really excited about the direction of the franchise right now. Now, that doesn't mean from here on out they're just going to keep playing better and better every single week. Like they're going to lose more football games. Like, yeah, they're on a 3-game winning streak right now. They're not going to go on how many games are left of the season? A 10, 11 game winning streak, 12 games? 12 games, I think 11 weeks. They're not going to win, or 13 weeks. They're not going to win every game from here on out. Like, they're going to have games where they play worse than this and where they lose. And given some of the inconsistency of this Bears team we've seen so far, it absolutely would not surprise me if they lose to a team they're supposed to beat. I mean, you look ahead on their schedule, the Saints next week. I don't think they're going to lose to the Saints, but you know, if the Bengals have Joe Flacco, like that's a team you should beat. But maybe they'll find a way to lose one of these games. The Giants are a team you feel like you should probably beat if they have Jackson Dart, but the Bears are inconsistent and up and down enough, and still like learning and growing, that there's going to be a game where they can't quite overcome it. And that doesn't mean, oh no, the whole blueprint is broken and the sky is falling, but it's part of this natural progression of like, they're making progress, they'll take steps back, but then you make progress through that and generally trend in that upward direction. I think we're really seeing that take off right now, especially just with all the key ways they were able to improve coming out of the bye week. Some of their biggest weaknesses were far from it in this game against the Commanders, and this Bears coaching staff absolutely deserves credit for finding some ways to turn that around in this game, but we also need to see them sustain that beyond just one good game. While it certainly wasn't pretty, maybe it started nice, but it didn't finish pretty for the Chicago Bears. There were some real improvements on both sides of the ball in this game that you can almost certainly point to the bye week as the largest individual factor in doing so. Maybe it's not the end all be all of everything, but like they very clearly figured out how to run the football and figured out how to stop the opposing offense from running the football and figured out how to generate a lot more of a pass rush and make the opposing quarterback more uncomfortable. And like those were all really big areas that were weaknesses of this team and were holding this team back, even in a win against the Raiders the week before. Like those were problems in that game. And we still need to see these successes from this game then sustain and, you know, keep doing those things well in games moving forward. But you absolutely have to recognize and celebrate that very real progress from this group. I mean, DeAndre Swift averaged over 7 yards per carry in this game. And it was not just like, oh, well, he had one big 60-yard run and then everything else was short. His long 55-yard play, that was a pass out of the backfield. It doesn't affect his rushing. But like when you look at, you know, where his carries went in this game, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 carries that went for 5 or more yards. And then, you know, another handful there that went for less than 5 yards. Of course, not every play is going to be 5 or more yards, but like his longest run was 19 yards in there. I think it was 6 runs that were 5 or less, and then 8 runs that were 5 or more. But it's a chunk of 9. It's a chunk of 7. It's a chunk of 14. It's a chunk of 15. It's a chunk of 16. A chunk of 10. And then, you know, the 19 one was the big run there. But for me, it felt like a combination of a couple things. One, he looked more explosive and more decisive running with the ball. And it felt like we saw this switch flip switch last year. I always get that phrase mixed up at some point too, where it was just like, there was just a game where all of a sudden he just realized, hey, I got to run into the hole full speed. Can't be waiting for the perfect lane or the perfect blocks to open up. Just got to go get it. I think it was the Rams game last year when it started. We saw it bleed over into the Jaguars game. And then he had his best game last year against the Washington Commanders. It was his only game over 100 yards last year. And now it's his only game over 100 yards rushing so far this season. And so now we need to see it sustained. So I think it was partially Swift looks more explosive and more decisive. I think it was partially, this is a generally kind of slow Commanders defense. This is not a group that is loaded with speed, especially I think from the linebacker position, but even a little bit on the back end as well. It's not to say that they are like, they're all, you know, Noah Sewell, Nick Kwiatkowski out there, but it's just not a high speed defense. And so I think by comparison, DeAndre Swift's breakaway speed looked faster against this group. But maybe a younger Bobby Wagner is all over it, but current age Bobby Wagner, not quite as fast. And I think even somebody like Frankie Louvu, who got that big hit on Caleb Williams, he's a big physical bruising linebacker, not a speedster there. And so when DeAndre Swift is able to get to the edge and have some room to work, he can squeeze extra yards out of plays that were blocked better. And that's really the third thing there. Like the run blocking was absolutely improved. Some of that was Theo Benedict at left tackle is definitely a better run blocker than Braxton Jones. Pass protection, I think there's still some up and down along the way there, and I'm curious to go back through the All-22 and really compare them head-to-head. But I also felt like Jonah Jackson blocked better in the running game, getting Darnell Wright back, even not 100%. He had a better game blocking, and they just seemed to get a better flow going with especially some of those zone runs, where in the past, there'd be a miscommunication between Dahlman and Jackson, and someone would get inside, and they wouldn't help enough on the double team. Like, they just didn't have good timing of, hit the double team and then go to the second level, where they'd either be too slow to get to the second level or too fast to get to the second level and not secure the first level first, like the defensive line. And we talked about this a little bit in terms of the difference between DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, but Swift is that running back who, if it's a poorly blocked running play, he's not going to get you much. But if you give him a good enough run block play, he could take a good blocked play to a great play. An otherwise good run can be a great run because of his speed, but he's not going to take a bad run and make it into a good run. Whereas Monangai, I think, is a little bit the opposite. And Roshan Johnson all of a sudden returns to the lineup and gets a carry in this game. I wonder how much of that was health and how much of that was they're just all right, let's give him a shot. Had one carry for 6 yards in this game, but it felt like all around improvement from this offensive line and from this running game that I don't think is purely Commanders based, right? This isn't the Bears went up against a really bad run defense, and that's why they were able to get going. The Commanders are not a top 10 run defense by any means, but they're not a bottom 5 run defense either. They're probably middle of the pack. And 7 yards per carry against the middle of the pack run defense is absolutely huge progress for this Bears offense. Then defensively, the way they were able to shut down Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt in the running game, shutdown's a strong word because he had a couple of nice runs in there, and Jaden Daniels had some nice runs too, but they held the Washington Commanders' number one running back to 3.6 yards per carry. This is the number one rushing offense in football that was going against the number 32 rushing defense in football. And to be able to hold them, the running back at least, to 3.6 yards per carry is a massive, massive win. And it kind of goes without saying, but it's not like this was a bad running game that you shut down because they were bad. Again, number one rushing attack. You held them that poorly. I think Andrew Billings had a great game, was a big part of that. I think the edge rushers were more physical. I think having TJ Edwards back and Kyler Gordon back was also all part of that. But it just kind of felt to me like a lot of individual players just started playing better. Montez Sweat played better. Dayo Odengbo played a little better. Javon Dexter played a little better. Tremaine Edmonds played a little better. Something about having that time off, that week off, to go back through the film and see some of the stuff that was going wrong. They clearly were able to correct some things in terms of hand placement, pad level, keeping your feet moving, reading your keys, getting in the backfield. And then I haven't seen numbers yet, but it felt like the Bears tackled a little better in this game too. That they had a big problem through the first 4 games of just not wrapping up consistently. And certainly there was that third down play later in the game, it was 3rd and 13, and Daniels threw it short, and then whoever the ball carrier was dragged defenders for 5 yards to get the first down, even when he was clearly going to be stopped short. Tackling is not perfect or totally solved or anything, but I think that also went a long way towards the improvement in run defense. And because the Commanders had been such a good running team, this does feel like something that might be a little bit more sustainable. If they could do it against the Commanders, why can't they do it against just about anybody else? The running game on the other side, I have more doubts about the sustainability there. I think he had a great game, and we don't want to take anything away from that. I don't know that he's going to rush for 7 yards a carry and over 100 yards every game from here on out. I think there's going to be ups and downs throughout that process as well, but I do think it will be improved given some of the offensive line improvements there. And I'll throw the pass rush in this same conversation, where at least watching it live, it felt like they got some good pressure on Jaden Daniels more consistently than we had seen them do it against other quarterbacks. I think Dennis Allen blitzed more often against Jaden Daniels than we'd seen him do against other quarterbacks, and it was effective in this game. I'm not sure that's going to work every week. They couldn't tackle him. They couldn't finish at the quarterback with a lot of that pass rush, but at least, they made him uncomfortable in the process, and that was definitely progress. And raises expectations moving forward, but maybe we shouldn't think, it's going to be totally fixed and stellar all the time moving forward. I mean, at the end of the day, I think they finished with 2 sacks on Jaden Daniels. One was from Javon Dexter. The other one was Dominic Robinson. I think he split a second one with Javon Dexter.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
The Falcons win over the Buffalo Bills on Monday night.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast.
Complete win for this football team. But, before we get there, let me tell you who I am. I'm your humble hater, Mr. Aaron Freeman, aka Mr. Drew. I've been covering the Atlanta Falcons for a very long time, almost 20 years, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP. Still going strong in this illustrious podcast, and I thank each and every one of you that despite my skepticism, despite my doubts about this Atlanta Falcons team, you continue to make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer of this podcast is subscribe and follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So again, hater, doubter, skeptic, whatever you want to call me, I did not believe, right, in this team's likelihood of winning the game. I thought they would play a competitive game. But, if you listen to Monday morning's episode on your audio field, Sunday nights on your YouTube feed, basically I spent that episode kind of lowering the expectations for this team because I was not a believer, right? And, they I'm not going to say they've made a believer out of me, but they've certainly, they got me listening to Justin Bieber, if you understand the pun, a little bit more. I'm going to be bumping some Justin Bieber because I'm a believer, or whatever nonsense I'm getting into here, guys. It's gonna be a ridiculous show, guys. I'm just letting you know. Still riding high. So, strap it. But, this was as impressive a win that we've seen from this team in a very long time. Right. The first half performance of this team to go up 21-7 against this Bills and play, I'm not going to say a perfect first half, but probably as close to perfection as you can realistically expect to play for this Falcon team going up against this Bills team in the first half. Pretty much not everything, but like 95% of the things that the Falcons wanted to go their way on both offense and defense went their way on offense and defense in the first half. Now, they let the Bills back in the game to a certain extent in the second half, but they were able to, put their boot on the throat when the time came in this one. And, part of the reason why I was sitting here lowering expectation was because I was nervous about building this game up. We talked about the potential of this game kind of being sort of the coming out party, the statement game, the declaration game for the Atlanta Falcons this season if they could go out there and pull off this upset. But because looking at this matchup and it's like, yeah, the Bills are a top 3 team for a reason. And the Falcons have been a middle of the pack team for a reason. And for me, a lot of it was, fans tend to get too high off of the wins and too low off the losses. And coming off that Washington win, it felt like, this Falcon team was probably going to come back down a little bit to earth, especially with this going up against this Bills team there's a reason, as I said, why they have been consistently one of the best teams in the league. And we didn't quite see that. And it's funny because I think coming off that I think it was the Washington game. I had a Locked On Falcons insider basically, hit me up being like, you know what? I think this Falcon team could be a contender with Philadelphia, who he was perceiving as the sort of the class of the NFC at that time. And I was just kind of like, all right, man, like, again, this is what I'm talking about, where it just feels like every time the Falcons win, people are like, oh, we're never going to lose a game again. And anytime the Falcons lose, the opposite is true, where it was like, we're never going to win a game ever again. And it's like, to me, this is the one time where the Falcons win a game, right? Where it feels like often fans treat like, oh, we're a Super Bowl contender. It's like, oh, like this is the one time where the Falcons, again, I'm not going to make that statement, but like this is the one time where you can puff up your chest and say like, yeah, I think this team legitimately can be a contender because of how impressive a performance this was against this Bills team, taking down one of the best teams in the NFL. And, I'm sure there'll be plenty of think pieces, suggesting that the Bills maybe aren't as good as we thought they were, right? And all that stuff, who they've won, the quality of wins and all that stuff. And again, I'll let other people write those think pieces. But all that I know from the Falcons' perspective, they took down one of the best teams in the league with one of the best quarterbacks in the league, with Sean McDermott going up against Sean McDermott, a proven top 10 coach. This Bills team is resilient. We talked about the stats all week long. This is a team that does not often lose 2 games in a row. They win 75% of their games coming off of a loss. And, not only are we going to get the think pieces about the Bills being, maybe not as good as overrated or whatnot, but now we're going to get those think pieces that, hey, this Falcons team is legit. And, we might be writing some of those think pieces here on this podcast. And so, I'm not ready to go like, oh, this team is a contender as of this game. But like, to me, this is kind of the first step that gets that ball rolling. If they can not just do this one thing, but you can start to string together, these multiple games, multiple wins, start to stack those wins. That's what turns you into a contender. And so to me, if this is the first step in, 3 steps, right? Like we kind of talked about it on Monday, where it's just like, if Raheem Morris is that guy, it's not just beating the Bills, but it's beating the Bills and then following up with a win against the 49ers and following up against a win against the Dolphins, et cetera, et cetera. And so my hope is that, the Falcons, this is the start of the Falcons proving that one insider correct, right? He, in my eyes, I thought he was wrong. He was just early, right? He was just earlier than the rest of us. And I'm like, we'll follow that person's lead. And maybe this is the beginning of this team being a contender. And that's the conversation we're having. And like, I did not have any confidence I had some optimism, don't get me wrong. But like, it was very, very small. It was like, oh, it's like an 8% chance that they beat the Bills. And like, I just didn't have any confidence going into this game. And again, like, I'm not ready to be like, we're one of the best, because again, we got a lot of games to be played over the course of the season, still 12 more games. And to make the playoffs, you got to win 7 of those games. And so we got, at least 7 more wins, that this Falcon team needs to pull off before, we can declare this team actual playoff team this season. But again, we're one step closer to that point. And so, we'll see if they can continue making those strides.
The Mariners are 2 wins away from the World Series.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
The Mariners are up 2-0 in the ALCS. They win game 1 by a score of 3-1 last night. They win game 2 tonight, 10-3. And now they're coming back home with a chance to clinch their first ever trip to the World Series as early as Thursday. And, I was at Rogers Center for both of these games, of course. So on this show, I'll be giving you more of a behind the scenes of what it was like in the building, while Colby will fill in the lines of what he saw on the broadcast. And we're going to talk about both of these games, more so tonight's, but definitely want to get into yesterday a little bit as well, because we haven't talked to you guys here on this show since then. Yeah, Colby, this is a Blue Jays team that just looked like an absolute wagon in the ALDS against the Yankees, especially at home in Toronto. But the M's handled them very well last night, and tonight just straight up smoked them. So I guess let's just start with your impressions of how they handled business these last 2 nights.
Yeah. Aside from one guy, statistically speaking, pitching has dominated the series for the Mariners. It obviously started, last night with Bryce Miller. By the time you guys are listening to this, it might have been last night, but Bryce Miller was incredible on 3 days rest to give you 18 outs of 1-run ball. And boy, It sure didn't look like that was going to be the case after the first 2 hitters, but he rallied and
There's
had
four hitters, really.
Yeah, probably had the best start of his career. Just considering all the nuance
stakes.
involved.
Yeah.
So it really is impressive what he did. And then your guys in the back end, your dogs in the back end of your pen look great, and you just shut it down, and that was that. So tonight was a little bit different, or today, stupid afternoon games, was a little bit different, just because Logan Gilbert wasn't good. Like straight up, he wasn't good, and it was unfortunately been a start we've seen from Logan all too much this year.
And you and I talked about this. This team was not a good matchup for who Logan Gilbert has been all year long.
Right. And he only gave you 9 outs, and there was some concern. And then, Bizzardo came in and did what he does. Like he's really good, and I still feel like we're not talking about him enough. And he gave you 2 massive innings with the game still on the line. This isn't like, Emerson Hancock's 2 innings where the game's basically decided despite Hancock's best efforts to, undecided it. He was great, and he went through the middle of the order once, and he was just fantastic, and it's just been that guy for most of this year. And shout out to Vargas as well. He pitched very well tonight in 2 innings of relief. A guy who's trust over the last couple of months. So pitching has been the calling card for the Mariners in this postseason. They have basically won every game that they've won because of their pitching. But tonight the offense also stepped up in a big. They did it with the home run ball, which is how we've kind of been accustomed to the Mariners winning down the stretch here, and they broke it out today. So really just a good effort all around. Again, there were some sketchy parts of the defense. Logan wasn't good. Hancock couldn't throw strikes, but just really solid 18 innings of baseball. And that's how you walk out of a, what was supposed to be a hostile environment. You could tell me if it was or wasn't, but that's how you walk out of there with 2 wins.
Yeah. So, to address that last part that you said there, like, I felt like the environment tonight was way more intense than it was last night. I feel like the build up to last night's game was better than it was tonight or today, whatever. Felt way more casual in the build up to it. Like I almost felt, in a way, my wife Caroline and I were talking to each other. It kind of felt like we were just at like a regular season game in the build up to it. But like last night, like felt like, oh, we're at the ALCS, but the atmosphere last night, I told you this when we were on our live stream on CTZ, like
last night being game 1.
Game 1. Like game 1, it didn't live up to what I remembered, like the wild card series being like, what that atmosphere felt like. But today definitely did, especially early on when like Springer hit that double. And even when Julio hit the 3-run home run, even after that, and after Naylor got on and all of that, like when Savage was able to get out of it, the crowd was super into it, and it was super loud in there. But yeah, once Polo hit that 3-run home run, then things started to shift pretty drastically. JP adds on, and then once Naylor hit the 2-run home run to make it 9-3, people started leaving.
Yeah.
People either started leaving or they started watching the Dodgers Brewers game on their phone, or they were watching Monday Night Football. Like I was looking around, people just kind of started like, it was very much like the people who stayed around were just like doing it because like, hey, I spent a lot of money to buy these tickets. Now I'm just going to kind of like chill, and we're just going to like talk amongst ourselves. Like the energy was completely sapped out of that building after Naylor hit that home run.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I made a point, even in like the second, third, fourth inning, even after the Blue Jays had made their little comeback and it was 3-3, I made the point on socials. I was like, it might be the broadcast, but it seemed quiet. Like obviously it really quieted down after Polo hit his home run, to the point where you could hear the players talking to each other on the field, on the broadcast and all that, but it seemed quiet. Again, sometimes that's just TV. But it didn't seem like there was a ton of energy in that ballpark. Really after
I would say around the third inning, it also kind of started to die down a little bit, even though it was tied. And I think that was just because like people started to go to the concourse, started to get food or go to the restroom or whatever. And so there started to be more empty seats consistently, and like people would return, but then more people, other people would go to the concourse and, they would just kind of, switch out. So yeah, it felt like the Mariners kind of just snatched the soul from that building tonight and from this fan base.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had multiple people come up to me and be like, good series. Like, good luck in the World Series, all that. Like, and I'm
definitely not doing that. Nope.
I feel uncomfortable, saying anything in response to that as a Mariners fan.
You shut your mouth. You don't know my pain.
Yeah, but it definitely felt like the vibe leaving the stadium tonight was very much like it's over vibe.
Which, I mean, if these games were in Seattle and they dropped 2, it probably would be very similar. So,
right. And I mean, like, it is very possible that people just went to their last baseball game of the entire year in Toronto.
It's definitely on the table. So,
yeah.
I just thought on TV it played as kind of, and maybe it's just because I'm not a part of that fan base, but like watching the Mariners on TV, you could like feel the stadium and you could feel the crowd. It came through very clearly, and I just didn't feel like it did these last 2 games. But who cares about that? We're talking about what happened on the field, really.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting experience to have where you're just kind of like, this is playoff baseball. So nice to see that really wasn't actually the case until the Mariners kind of jumped up on them. But interesting.
Yeah. And they also did and credit to the Mariners of doing a great job of just shutting that crowd the hell up.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits. However, I want to bet in the moment with player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
This is the Dodgers Postcast, your instant game reaction for the Los Angeles Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I gotta be honest, I did not see that coming. And that, I mean, Blake Trinan coming in to get the job done. I was like, if Trinan comes into this game, we're cooked and it is over. But a bigger question for you guys, honestly, why not leave Blake Snell in there? Seriously, give me a reason why not.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Face the minimum. He was cooking, dealing. He was unhittable. 1 hit, 10 Ks, no walks, 103 pitches. What are you saving him for? Seriously, Dave? Come on, Doc. What are you saving him for? 103 pitches is not a lot. He was throwing mostly off speed. He could pitch tomorrow. Okay, maybe Wednesday. What are you saving him for? I know Roki's there. Roki's been locked in. We all wanted to see Sasaki. We were like, yeah, that's fine. It's cool. I get it. But at the same time, I don't get it. Leave him out there. If he gets into trouble, then go get Roki. Tony says Roki was awful. I don't know about that. Wasn't great. Did get an out. But he's a rookie. One of my buddies pointed that out. Let's take it easy. He's a rookie. OJ says, okay, Roki's been on one. I'm not mad at the decision. I know we're playing Monday morning quarterback here, but that's what we do. That's our job. That's my job to sit here and question Doc all the time. And I've defended him a lot. Generally, I do. But the pitching decisions that have been made this postseason have made it way, way too interesting. So, too many balls. And look, you can't say, hey, Roki, go in there and throw more strikes. But the bottom line was you kind of didn't even need to put yourself in that situation because Snell was locked in. I mean, I don't like, it's not a perfect game because he didn't go 9, but I don't understand. I think it's weird. It's one of the weird rules of baseball. He did give up a hit, but then picked the guy off, right? Still should have been a perfect game had he gone 9. Right? He faced the minimum amount of hitters. And especially when you pick him off, it's like, well, I gave up a hit, but I erased it. I made up for it. Now, if he hits him to a double play, that's a different gray area. But when you pick him off, come on. But face the minimum. There's no disputing that. 2-1 the final, by the way. Dodgers win game 1 of the NLCS.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
Not even close. Blake Snell, 8 innings, 1 hit, 10 Ks. This is one of those games. They likened it to the Roy Halladay perfect game in 2010. This is one of those games where Snell could have said, change up, slider. He could have just called out his pitches beforehand. Curveball. He went through the 7th inning, didn't throw a fastball. I mean, 77 through 6, 91 through 7, retired 14 in a row. And in the 7th, he didn't throw a fastball. Got the final batter on just a wicked, nasty curveball that just dropped right in the pocket. So, congratulations, Blake Snell. Thank you for doing that. Honorable mention on player of the game to, I guess Mookie Betts, because he gets the RBI to give the Dodgers that little bit of insurance, which turned out to be the deal breaker. Ultimately, though, Freddie Freeman. Woo!
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
You could go either way on this, but, in a game when nobody could score and Freddie gets one right in his wheelhouse, in his kitchen, down and in where he loves it, and launched it to, and I say launched, I mean it, 46 degrees. They said that was the 2nd highest home run since they've been keeping that stat. 46 degrees. And when you see it from that other angle, it almost hits the roof. Craziness. 362 feet, but it probably went 400 feet up in the air. Just absolutely launched to right field. Then he had a double. So Freddie Freeman, huge part of this win for the Dodgers. Nice to see. Shohei Ohtani is still worthless. Hold on. Sorry, Nando. Back up. I'll back up. Not worthless. He is a decoy. Everyone still thinks he's hot. Everyone still thinks he's hitting. I don't know what they're not seeing. I know he's still capable, but he is so ice cold right now. He has no ability to hit home runs. I mean, he can put the ball in play. He hit the ball hard once tonight, walked 3 times, 2 of them intentionally. The first one to lead off the game, not an intentional walk. But he's like, ice cold. So why do you keep walking him? Just throw him down and in, down and in, down and away, and he'll strike out. Or you could go down and in, down and in. He'll flail at both of those because he can't hit that pitch. And then you could just gas one down Main Street and he'll watch it. It's not hard to figure out. Okay. If I could throw harder, I could strike him out. It is repetitive. It's unfortunate. It's disgusting. And it's ridiculous that Shohei Ohtani is so bad right now. The only thing keeping us from saying he's the worst on the Dodger team is Andy Pages, who is 1 hit in the postseason. Really? 0 for 3 today. His batting average is 37. If you have a toddler, their batting average would be a little bit higher than that, I think, because they might be able to get hit by a pitch or, they did get walked. I don't know. All of his numbers, his OPS is just barely over 100. His on-base percentage, 71. His slug is 37, the same as his batting average. 37. I was talking to a buddy today during the game. I'm like, I don't know what you do, right? I guess it's call. It's too bad Tommy Edman can't play outfield right now. You got to run him. Seriously, you can play second base, but you can't play the outfield. I don't know. That seems weird to me. I don't get it. Like, yeah, he had a sprained ankle, but he's fine. Put him out there. Sit Pajas down. You put Miggy at second, and it's a better lineup. Not even close. Will Smith, a couple of hits today. That was nice to see. Tommy Edman had one.
Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k or properties or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I linked all my accounts to Monarch and immediately spotted a few subscriptions I wasn't even using. Canceling those all can save you money every month. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL.
The Buffalo Bills enter their bye on a 2-game losing streak and tons of questions.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast.
The Buffalo Bills lose to the Atlanta Falcons 24-14 and fall to 4-2 on the season. There are questions and there are concerns and there is criticism for this football team, and every bit of it is deserved. You go through the first 4 games of the season, the Bills are 4-0. They're winning, but they're not playing their best football. You see issues. And now you suffer 2 losses in a row where you are flat out outplayed. Flat out outplayed back-to-back weeks. And this is not unfamiliar territory for the Bills. The Bills are 4-2 last year and have been 4-2 for the last 5 years. Go back to last season. They had ugly losses to the Ravens and Texans. And then, of course, they get to the AFC Championship game and had a chance to win it. But you were kind of in this similar spot. In 2023, you were 4-2, had an ugly loss in week 1 of the Jets. You had that Jags-London game, and you eventually actually fall to 6-6. You wind up getting the Chiefs at home in the divisional round. You had a chance to win the game. In 2021, they're 4-2. Ugly loss to the Steelers in week 1. You had the Josh Allen slipped loss against the Titans, and that season ends in 13 seconds. In 2020, the Bills were 4-2. They had back-to-back ugly losses to the Titans and Chiefs. So not unfamiliar territory, but does this team have the stuff to put it together and play their best football? And when they play their best football, what does it look like? I guess we're going to find out down the stretch, but if you have questions about this team, you should. They've earned that. If you have criticism for this team, it's well-deserved. It's well-deserved. Whatever your pressing issue is that you're thinking is holding this team back, right now you're absolutely right about it. This team has a lot to prove. We'll find out. We'll find out. All right, let's get into some specifics from this game. We'll do things I didn't like. We'll do things I liked from this game. We'll talk about my predictions and what's next. Let's start with things I didn't like. This team was obviously flat. Team was flat. But they still had chances. And they couldn't take advantage. You had a chance to have your same type of win that you had weeks 2, 3, and 4. But you had way too many unforced errors. First play of the game. The first play of the game. It's a dream scenario. You lose the toss, and they choose to receive the ball. And boy, if you start on defense and they don't score on that drive, you're +1 possessions the rest of the way. Boy, it's exciting. And they fumbled on the first snap of the game. Dorian Williams strips it from Bijan Robinson. Christian Benford recovers it. Doesn't count. Greg Rousseau is offsides. No play. It's 1st and 5. Falcons go 69 yards on the next 5 plays and score a touchdown. Then you have another huge defensive play called back. Joey Bosa gets a sack. Ed Oliver was offsides. So you went from 2nd and 16 after the sack to 1st and 5. You know what happened on 1st and 5? Bijan Robinson for 81 yards. I mean, come on. Those are unforced errors. You just couldn't line up. You couldn't line up correctly. I mean, you talk about tackling as the most fundamental issue for a defense. Well, in order to tackle, you got to get lined up first. They couldn't get lined up. You're lined up in the neutral zone. You just can't do it. It's a fundamental problem. Took away 2 huge splash plays. A turnover and a swing of the pendulum that goes from 2nd and 16 to 1st and 5. 1st and 5, they get an 81-yard touchdown run. How about some of your own issues on offense? Josh Allen makes an unbelievable throw on 3rd down. Khalil Shakir can't get a second foot down. Shakir's got to get a second foot down. You got to get it down. It's a tough play, but NFL receivers make that play. You have another drive that's stalled because Josh Allen throws the ball 3 yards short of Tyrell Shavers on a shallow route. Get the ball to him, dude. You have another drive stalled because Josh Allen flicks the ball to Ty Johnson. Why not just make the normal throw? You have another drive stalled because you run a ridiculous jet sweep with Elijah Moore on 4th down. It's a turnover on downs. You fumble the exchange. You can't get the 1st down. Doesn't matter that it was blocked well. You got to get the handoff done correctly. Just basic fundamental stuff. Get your foot down. Make a normal throw. Hand off the ball correctly. And then Shaq Thompson has an opportunity for a pick 6 at the end of that game that would have tied it up. You drop the ball. Atlanta foolishly passes in that situation, and you break on the ball. You have a chance to pick it off and take it to the house. You don't catch it. Yeah, you were not the better team tonight, by no means. But let's not act like there weren't plays there to be made, and you just didn't make them. And they were a lot of those unforced errors. You could have had a nice ugly win. You could have been 5-1. And no, you're sitting there choking on 2 losses in a row. Well-earned losses. Disappointing. The first half defense was a nightmare. I'll give them a lot of credit for how they responded. But this defense was lifeless to start the game, giving up 3 touchdowns in the first 4 drives. Gave up 335 yards in the first half. 335 yards in the first half. That's more yards than the Bills had for the game. The Bills had 291 yards for the game. You gave up 335 in the first half. And you know where they went with the football? Exactly where you knew they were going to go. Drake London, Bijan Robinson. Those guys had 199 yards in the first half. Robinson finishes with 25 touches for 238 yards. Drake London, 10 catches for 158 yards. You knew those guys were going to make plays. But these guys are having career games. Players are lost in coverage. Angles to the football are poor. Tackling is poor. It's bad defense. At least for the first 4 drives. They settled in, but that put Atlanta in a great position to be 2-dimensional on offense and put the Bills in a position where they're kind of chasing it. Really, really bad first half defense. They bounce back, though.
The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for the weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits. However, I want to bet in the moment with player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Would Kurt Cignetti actually leave Indiana for Penn State?
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Do you want Kurt Cignetti if you're a Penn State fan? Indiana fans, how concerned are you with Cignetti leaving for Penn State? Because this should be Penn State's top coaching candidate. I've seen Matt Rule. I've seen Manny Diaz. In a perfect world, I personally like Mike Elko, but let's take all considerations, all logistics out of it. Kurt Cignetti would objectively be the top candidate for Penn State without any of the other logistics attached.
Well, I think the thing we need to kind of remind ourselves here is Penn State's just the first big job that's opened up here recently. If it wasn't Penn State, it was going to be somebody else that Kurt Cignetti's name would be thrown into the ring for. UCLA could be an option. I don't think that would be one, but it's a job, right? The Florida job could come open. The Auburn job could come open. What happens at North Carolina? I mean, there's so many different jobs that could open up or will open up by the end of the season. Penn State just happened to be right here in the middle of it. And it just so happened to be that Kurt Cignetti got the biggest win of his coaching career and the biggest win of the Indiana's program career and history on the same weekend, within 12 hours of each other, that Indiana beat Oregon and Penn State cut loose from James Franklin. So it should be an honor for Indiana and for Indiana fans to have your head coach for football be thrown around in some of the biggest job openings in the country. But look, I've talked about this already on Locked On Hoosiers this week. The idea of Kurt Cignetti leaving to go to Penn State. Is there a world where it happens? Sure, I think so. But I don't think it makes the most sense all the way around, Seiko. I just don't.
Okay. For me, it does make a ton of sense from Penn State's perspective. Cignetti is a Pennsylvania guy. He's obviously a proven winner. He was taken, I know it was James Madison, but he was taking James Madison to FCS championships. And that's why Indiana took a chance on him. I'm surprised he has connections with Pitt. He's from Western Pennsylvania, but he coached for the Pitt Panthers. I thought they would kick Narduzzi out and try to promote. And I said, this is a slam dunk. Boot Narduzzi and go get Kurt Cignetti. Well, that never happened. Who knows if they even had a conversation about it. And then I love the move for Indiana. So I'm going to love the move if Penn State is able to make it, but it's certainly not a guarantee. Even though Penn State is probably going to give him the first phone call, it's not guaranteed, because I am a little hesitant here. I will say this about Indiana. They rolled out the red carpet. They've treated him like royalty. Not an afterthought. They bought in immediately. Not only did they give him his break in the Power 4 ranks of being a head coach, they gave him everything he asked for. The reason Indiana football is where they are is because they aligned. They backed Kurt Cignetti. And if you're Cignetti, why would you want to leave that for a place that's shown that, hey, you can have as much success, but if you don't do this, you still might get the boot at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you've done your research, and it's absolutely true, because Indiana football has been so bad for so long, and you got somebody with a Nick Saban type of mentality. Kurt Cignetti comes from the Saban coaching tree, and for those who remember when Saban was hired in Tuscaloosa at Alabama in 2007, he came in and said, hey, this is how I operate. This is how I'm going to do it. And if you want to be successful, you're going to listen to me and give me what I want. And we saw what that turned into. Kurt Cignetti's doing the same type of things. I'm not comparing them and saying they're the same. I'm saying they operate the same, and they have the same mental work ethic and the same ideas. And you've turned Indiana into one of the best football teams and one of the best football programs in the nation in just a year and a half. Kurt Cignetti has 0 5-stars and just 7 4-stars on this year's Indiana roster, and they're a top 3 team in the nation. That's pretty remarkable. And it's because, like you said, Zach, the Indiana athletics department and the university backed him. You've got renovations to the weight room, renovations to the practice facility, money in NIL, boosters are flooding in, and Indiana football is pouring everything they have and can into Kurt Cignetti, and it's paying off. That's sort of what I've talked about already this week is, why would you walk away from that? Why would you leave a place that idolizes you, that's already talking about building you a statue outside the stadium? Like, you are in a place where you are so beloved already. you simply could do no wrong if you are Curt Cignetti. Going to a place like Penn State would be great. Probably could pay him a little bit more money. He's making over $8 million a year right now, but the spotlight is so much brighter at Penn State. And not that he's shying away or scared of that, but you've got a home in Bloomington and a place that will love you forever. I just don't know why you'd leave that. James Franklin is out at Penn State, and the top candidate seems to be Curt Cignetti from the Indiana Hoosiers. But people are asking, Zach, what are the possibilities of this happening? What are the odds of this happening? There are legit betting lines that you can hop on in certain places for Curt Cignetti to be the next head coach of the Penn State Nittany Lions. So I'm going to throw this to you from the Penn State perspective. You've already mentioned he's one of, if not the first phone call that Penn State makes. But what do you think the odds are that Penn State can make this happen and make Curt Cignetti the next head coach in Happy Valley?
Pretty fair, because Penn State's going to have to make Curt Cignetti say no. It's not just, we're going to be passive, right? Penn State don't make this move lightly. They fired James Franklin and are willing to pay him around $50 million not to coach another game for them because they want to win national titles. Well, if Curt Cignetti can do this, and again, we're going to debate this in the upcoming segment, because in my belief, if Curt Cignetti can do this at Indiana, imagine what he can do at Penn State. So, I'm already starting to throw my jabs, but I think the odds are fair because Penn State is going to be persistent. They are going to call Curt Cignetti. We'll talk about what happens if this doesn't happen for the Nittany Lions, because I'm eager to see, I feel like the sky is falling if Indiana loses Curt Cignetti. With that being said, odds are good because I think Cignetti and Indiana have such a good relationship, but Penn State, hey, we'll bump up your salary. We'll give raises to your staff members. We'll give you more staff members. We'll get you more analysts. We'll get you whatever you need, because resources are not going to be a problem at Penn State. And that's what I've heard, despite the buyout, because I came from the frame of mind that, hey, Penn State's going to have to cut back on NIL and all this stuff, or they're going to have to be really conscious of how they spend money. It doesn't sound like it. So it is full force ahead. Go get the candidate that is at the top of your list, which is Curt Cignetti, and make him say no. So that means increased salary for not only him, staff members, the lifetime contract, so to speak. Cignetti would get the guarantees that, hey, if you want to be here for 5 years, if you want to be here for 10 years, you get the contract that you want. So that's what it's going to take from Penn State. And I mean, Cignetti's proven that, I wouldn't go for the end all be all, but he certainly deserves a lot of resources and a lot of help.
Yeah, and from the Indiana side of it and from the Cignetti side of it, I mean, you bring up salaries and resources and things, but I go back to the idea that at Indiana, they've given him all that, right? He's a top 20 paid coach in the country, making over $8 million a year. Bryant Haynes, your defensive coordinator, who proved last Saturday against Oregon, he's one of the best in the nation. He's making $2 million a year, which I know Jim Knowles making more than that. But then you have your offensive coordinator, Mike Shanahan, whose salary just went from $800K to over $1 million a year. So Indiana's paying some pretty competitive numbers in terms of the head coach and the coaching staff. It's just the idea that I just don't know if it makes sense for Cignetti to leave a place that he's already built in a year and a half. Why would you just dip out and say, well, this was fun, but I'm going to go somewhere else and see if I can do it? He just doesn't give off that vibe to me. I mean, he's somebody that has done it the right way. He's worked his way through the ranks. And now that he has his first big opportunity, I just think he's going to want to hang around and see what this thing can become. And I don't think he coaches for the next 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, he's in his mid 60s now, right? You're talking about somebody that isn't going to do it forever. This isn't a Dan Lanning or a Kenny Dillingham type of situation where you hire somebody for the next 25 years. I don't know why Cignetti would want to start over again. And for the Penn State side of it, I don't know why you would go hire somebody that isn't a temp hire, but it's not a 20, 25 year solution. Maybe they're just in win now mode. I don't know.
Well, I have an idea for that. Okay. Mike Shanahan seems like a good head coach in waiting. That would be the perfect transition if you keep, again, and because I've thought about this, why bring in a coach like Urban Meyer? Why bring in a coach like Ed Orgeron or try to convince Nick Saban? I think those are off the wall hires, unless that's a 2 to 3 year plan. And then you get, the understudy the mentee to take over for that coach. Just get him to stabilize everything for 2 to 3 years, give him what you want, and then let that superstar, rising star, potential head coach, Mike Shanahan or Brian Haynes, right? Both of them, I think, are future head coaches. So that's something that Indiana consider. It's something that everybody should consider, whether Cignetti stays at Indiana or moves on, because I think Mike Shanahan or Brian Haynes would be optional, or they would be optional coaching candidates for Penn State if they want to move beyond Cignetti. Mike Shanahan in particular, because offense has just been such a struggle for the Nittany Lions. So now let's talk that through, right? If it does happen, if it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah. I mean, look, for Indiana, if it does happen, yeah, it's devastating. I mean, it's
Awful.
just a shot through the heart. Everything that you've lived through the past year and a half, the greatest year and a half in the history of the program, it's been awesome, but it's just it's devastating, right? And I think Indiana has proven, again, with all the money and facilities and buy-in, you could go get another big-time head coach, and eventually you're going to have to do it. But man, you just don't want to lose somebody who's proven to be one of the best in the game. If it doesn't happen, then nothing changes. Even if you do pay the man a little bit more money, who just got a pay raise, fine. Do what you got to do. Keep him in Bloomington and don't let him get away.
Yeah, I say that either way, Curt Cignetti and his friends, the coaching staff, all benefit here. It will, whether it's a salary increase or more NIL or more guarantees or the statue. How could you give up the statue? Everybody benefits it when a job like Penn State opens. It's not only Cignetti. Mike Elko is going to get a raise. Somebody else is going to get a raise to try and prevent Penn State from and then it's the domino effect that this creates. If Penn State doesn't get Cignetti, and again, if you and I have to make a prediction right now in the middle of October 2025. I don't think it happens. And I don't think you think it happens either.
I don't either.
Indiana is very serious, and they haven't been passive like, oh, well, maybe if you prove it. They're like, no, we'll give you everything you need to help us out. Tom Allen crawled over broken glass so that Curt Cignetti could succeed at Indiana. So True. I personally don't think it happens, even though I think the likelihood is fair, because, again, Penn State's going to make it so you have to say no if you're Cignetti. But with that being said, if it doesn't happen, I mean, Penn State's just going to move on down the list. Again, Mike Elko is going to get a call. Manny Diaz is going to get a call. If it's somebody like Mike Elko that you get Cignetti to say no, but you get Mike Elko to say yes, shockwaves all across college football, because then it means another big fish is eating a little fish. Texas A&M is going to go and get the coach. It's like, man, okay, we just got Penn State just poached our coach. We got to go get somebody just as good. Who knows better, right? Mike Elko is one of the top coaches in college football right now. Holy moly, we didn't think this was going to happen.
Right.
But it is going to send, and then Texas A&M is going to take somebody's staff, and then somebody else is going to take somebody else's staff, and it's just this trickle-down effect throughout college football. So that's what's going to happen one way or another, especially if Penn State gets a Curt Cignetti or a Mike Elko. It's not going to be as apparent if Manny Diaz happens to move on, but I would say the big fish of Matt Rule, Mike Elko, or Curt Cignetti will send absolute shockwaves and create this massive domino effect if that move was to actually happen.